Okay, we've got a really interesting mix of articles today, all about new construction versus existing homes. I think a lot of people just automatically assume that new construction's got to be more expensive.
Yeah, that's kind of the traditional thinking, isn't it?
It is, but from what I'm seeing in these articles, that might not be the case anymore.
Right.
So let's unpack this a little. We've got 6 reasons why new construction is winning this year. New homes cost less than used ones, and that's not normal. Pros and cons of new construction homes from Bankrate, and the weird reason why brand new homes are now actually cheaper than old ones and where these deals are hiding.
Wow, that last one sounds intriguing.
It does, right? Okay, so first things first. One of these articles, New Homes Cost Less Than Used Ones, mentions that the median price difference between new and existing homes actually flipped in May 2024. Like new homes were cheaper, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I knew the market was shifting, but that's a pretty big deal.
Right. And it's not just a little blip on the radar. The article actually points out that this kind of flip has only happened 14 months out of the past, get this, 56 years.
Wow. So historically speaking, we're in pretty unusual territory.
We are. So the big question is why? What's driving this shift?
Well, a lot of it has to do with those high mortgage rates we keep hearing about. They've made it a lot less attractive for people who already own homes to sell, so fewer houses are going up for sale.
So less inventory means higher prices for those existing homes?
Exactly. Basic supply and demand. But here's the thing. Builders are adapting to this whole situation.
How so?
Well, they're realizing that affordability is a big concern for buyers right now. So some of them are offering smaller, more streamlined homes, kind of trimming the fat, so to speak, to make those new builds more appealing to buyers facing those high interest rates.
Interesting. So it's like they're adjusting their strategy to stay competitive.
Exactly. Now, the Weird Reason article pointed out something really interesting. Apparently, this trend of new construction being cheaper isn't the same everywhere.
Oh, right. They talked about how different states have totally different situations going on.
Yeah, for example, California has an average price difference of $200,000
Hmm.
favoring new construction. And in Hawaii, get this, existing homes can cost almost double what new homes cost.
That's wild. Why such a huge difference from state to state?
Well, it's a bunch of factors, really. Local market conditions play a big role. So like building regulations, the cost of materials, even just how much land is available, all that stuff can be totally different in different parts of the country.
It makes sense that California has super strict building codes, right?
Yeah, some of the strictest in the country. And that can definitely add to the cost of new construction.
Hmm.
But then you've got Hawaii, where there's just not a lot of land available, period. So the prices of those existing homes get driven way up, making new construction a relative bargain.
Okay, so it's almost like comparing apples to oranges in some cases.
It is. But even beyond the price, there are a lot of other reasons why someone might choose new construction over an existing home, like think about maintenance.
That's a good point. Nobody wants to be constantly fixing things.
Exactly. And this 6 Reasons article has some interesting stats on this. They say that homes built before 1960 can rack up maintenance costs, averaging 8% of the home's value.
8%. Yikes.
Yeah, but get this. For homes built in the 2010s, it's only 2%.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
It is, especially if you plan on staying in your home for a while. Less money on repairs means more money in your pocket for other things. Plus, new homes usually come with those builder warranties.
Right. So you have that extra layer of protection just in case something does go wrong.
Exactly. And let's not forget about insurance, which can be a big expense.
Yeah, especially these days. I remember reading that insurance premiums are usually lower for newer homes. Is that true?
Absolutely. Insurance companies see new homes as less risky to insure because they're built with the latest safety features and meet all the current building codes.
So if something like a natural disaster were to hit, a newer home would probably fare better.
Right. The article even mentioned that premiums for homes over 30 years old can be 75% higher than for brand new ones.
That's crazy. So you might end up saving quite a bit on insurance with a new build.
You could. And beyond just the financial side of things, today's buyers and even renters, they're looking for certain features. Things like energy efficiency, modern designs, spaces that are move-in ready. New construction often checks all those boxes.
It's true. There's something really appealing about an open floor plan, brand new appliances, that fresh paint smell. It feels like a fresh start.
It does. And speaking of energy efficiency, newer homes are just built differently. Tighter seals, better insulation, all that stuff, it really adds up to lower utility bills.
So it's good for the planet and good for your wallet.
Exactly. And it can even make your home more attractive to future buyers if you ever decide to sell.
Right, because people are definitely paying more attention to energy efficiency these days.
They are. And then there's the whole customization aspect. Being able to personalize your space from scratch, that's a big draw for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah, that's something you just can't get with an existing home, at least not to the same extent.
Right. I mean, you can always renovate an older home, but with new construction, you're literally starting with a blank slate. You pick the finishes, the layout.
Mm.
You can even add special features that make it truly your home.
That's pretty awesome. But of course, no option is perfect. What about the downsides of going the new construction route?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is the timeline. Building a new home takes time. We're talking anywhere from 3 to 9 months on average.
That's a pretty long wait, especially if you're eager to move in.
It can be. And sometimes there are delays, especially with supply chain issues and all that. So you have to be patient. Plus, even though we've talked about how new construction can be surprisingly affordable, it's still important to be realistic about the overall cost.
I know that article mentioned that the median price for a new home back in November 2023 was something like $434,700.
Right. And that's just the base price. You got to factor in upgrades, potential cost overruns. Things happen. So budgeting carefully is crucial.
Are there any hidden costs that people might not think about?
Oh, absolutely. New construction doesn't always include things that you might get with an existing home, like landscaping, fencing, even finishing a basement. Those can be extra.
Oh, that's good to know. I guess those costs can add up quickly if you're not careful.
They can.
Yeah.
And you might not have as much wiggle room to negotiate with a builder as you would with a seller on an existing home. So that's something to keep in mind. And then there's the whole thing about off-gassing.
Off-gassing, what's that?
It's basically when those new building materials release volatile organic compounds. They're called VOCs. You know how new cars have that distinct smell?
Yeah.
Well, new homes can have that too. And while it's usually not a big deal, for some people, it can trigger allergies or sensitivities.
So it's something to be aware of, especially if you're sensitive to those sorts of things.
Exactly. But hey, don't let that scare you off completely. There are plenty of ways to make new construction more financially attainable. The Weird Reason article had some great tips on this.
Like what?
Well, one thing they emphasized was working with a builder-preferred lender. A lot of times they can hook you up with some sweet incentives, things like permanent interest rate buy-downs, which can really lower your monthly payments.
Oh, wow. So it's almost like getting a discount on your mortgage.
Kind of. It's definitely worth exploring.
Oh.
And timing is everything too. Sometimes you can snag a better deal if you buy early in the development, before prices go up, or sometimes even later in the game when they're trying to close out a community.
So it pays to be strategic. I like it.
Right. And don't be afraid to think outside the box. Consider those less desirable lots, or maybe a slightly smaller home. Those often come with a lower price tag. And when it comes to those upgrades, all the bells and whistles, prioritize. Figure out what really matters to you and negotiate for those instead of going crazy with all the fancy extras.
It's like anything else, right? Don't get caught up in the hype and overspend on things you don't really need.
Exactly. And last but not least, think geographically. You might be surprised at what you can find if you expand your search beyond those super popular areas. Suburban or even rural areas often have lower land costs, which means lower home prices.
So many great tips to consider. It sounds like new construction might be a viable option after all, even in today's market.
It could be. But like we've been saying, there are so many factors to weigh. It's about doing your homework, being strategic, and figuring out what's right for you.
It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, that's for sure. We've covered a lot in this first part, but there's still so much more to explore.
Absolutely.
We've touched upon the surprising price fluctuations in the market. We've talked about the pros and cons of new construction versus existing homes. And we've even uncovered some clever tactics for making new builds more affordable. But what about the impact on landlords?
That's a great question, and one we'll tackle head-on in the next part. We'll also explore how new construction is shaping the rental market and dig deeper into those environmental and financial benefits of building eco-conscious homes.
Sounds good. I can't wait to continue this conversation. Welcome back. So, we've been talking a lot about buying a home, but I'm also curious about the rental market. Are landlords thinking about new construction more these days?
Oh, definitely. With all the talk about rising maintenance costs for older properties and those sky-high insurance premiums, A lot of landlords are starting to see the appeal of new builds.
Makes sense. Newer properties probably mean fewer headaches, right?
Exactly. Less time dealing with repairs, more predictable expenses. And from an investment standpoint, new homes often attract tenants more easily.
I can see why. If I were a renter, I'd be drawn to those modern amenities, energy efficient appliances, the whole package.
Absolutely. And that can lead to lower vacancy rates, which is a big plus for landlords. Plus, remember how we talked about insurance being cheaper for new homes?
Yeah, especially in areas prone to things like hurricanes or wildfires.
Right. So in those places, new construction is becoming even more attractive to landlords. It's not just about attracting tenants, it's about protecting their investment. And let's not forget about energy efficiency.
Oh, right. Newer homes tend to be more energy efficient, which means lower utility bills.
Exactly. And that's a win-win for both landlords and tenants.
Totally. It's good for the environment and good for the wallet. Now, earlier we talked about some of those financing tactics for buyers, like working with a builder preferred lender to get better rates. Do those apply to landlords as well?
Many of them do. Those interest rate buy-downs, where the builder helps subsidize a lower rate for a certain period, those can be huge for landlords.
Yeah, it's like a built in discount on your mortgage
It
payments.
is. And a lot of those other tips we talked about, like timing your purchase strategically or being flexible with the lot size, those apply to landlords as well.
So, a lot of the same principles apply, whether you're buying to live in a home or to rent it out.
Exactly. But of course, landlords have to consider additional factors too, like the potential rental income and the long-term costs of property management.
That makes sense. Speaking of which, the pros and cons article talked about the importance of finding a reputable builder with strong warranties. I imagine that's especially important for landlords.
It's crucial. You want to make sure you're protected in case there are any construction defects or issues down the road.
I know they even suggested checking the builder's credit score.
It might sound strange, but it actually makes a lot of sense. A builder with good credit is more likely to be financially stable, which means they're more likely to finish your project on time and to a high standard.
So it's like doing your due diligence before you enter into any kind of business partnership.
Exactly. And don't forget about asking for references from past clients. Hearing from people who have actually worked with the builder can give you some valuable insights.
And that article also emphasized the importance of having your own real estate agent represent you.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. A lot of people think they don't need an agent when they're buying new construction. But having someone on your side who knows the ins and outs of the process can be invaluable.
Especially when it comes to negotiating, right?
Absolutely. They can help you get the best possible deal and make sure your interests are protected.
It's like having an advocate in your corner.
Exactly. Now, shifting gears a bit, one of the things that really stood out to me in these articles was the focus on eco-conscious construction.
Oh, yeah, I noticed that too. It seems like more and more new homes are incorporating things like energy efficient appliances and solar panels.
You're right. It's not just a trend anymore. It's becoming the standard. And what's really cool is that those features are not only good for the environment, they're good for the homeowner's wallet too.
It's a win-win. You're reducing your carbon footprint A&D, saving money on your energy bills.
Precisely. And those features can actually increase the resale value of your home down the road.
So it's a smart investment from every angle. It's like a virtuous cycle. You're doing good for the planet, you're saving money, and you're potentially increasing the value of your property.
I love that way of putting it.
But, when we talk about new construction, I can't help but think about the existing homes that sometimes get torn down to make way for new developments. What happens to all those materials?
That's a great question, and it's something a lot of people are concerned about. Thankfully, there's a growing movement towards deconstruction rather than demolition.
Need construction.
Yeah, it's basically carefully taking a building apart and salvaging as much of the material as possible.
So instead of just bulldozing everything, they're actually trying to reuse and recycle the materials.
Exactly. It's a much more sustainable approach. It reduces waste, it lowers the demand for new materials, and it can even create jobs in the salvage and recycling industries.
Wow, that's impressive. It's like giving those materials a second life.
It is, and it's a great example of how we can be more mindful of our impact on the environment.
This whole conversation about sustainability has got me thinking bigger picture now. Like, it's not just about individual homes, it's about creating entire communities that are more sustainable.
Absolutely. Things like walkable neighborhoods, access to public transportation, community gardens, all of that plays a role.
It's about creating a lifestyle that's more in harmony with the environment.
Exactly. And when you combine that with energy-efficient homes and sustainable building practices, you start to see a real shift towards a more responsible way of living.
It's inspiring to think about how all of these pieces fit together. Now, I want to go back to something we touched upon earlier, those hidden gems in the new construction market.
You mean those deals that are out there if you know where to look?
Exactly. Like, I remember that Weird Reason article talking about how developers sometimes offer lower prices for those early bird buyers.
Oh, yeah. It's a great way for them to secure funding and for buyers to snag a good deal before prices go up.
It's like getting in on the ground floor of a new development. And then there are those less desirable lots, the ones that maybe don't have the best views or are a little smaller.
Right. Those can be real bargains for buyers who are willing to be a little flexible.
And what about those model homes?
Ah, yes. Those are sometimes called spec homes, and they can be a great option too. You might not have as much control over the design, but you get a move-in ready home, often with some nice upgrades, and sometimes at a lower price.
Sounds like a pretty good deal to me. But regardless of whether you're buying new construction or an existing home, budgeting is key.
Absolutely. Know your limits, factor in those potential hidden costs, and make sure you have a little cushion in case of unexpected expenses.
Solid advice. And if you're financing a new build, it's probably a good idea to work with a lender who specializes in construction loans.
Oh yeah, for sure. They'll understand the ins and outs of the process and can help you navigate all the paperwork.
So it's all about assembling a team of experts who can guide you through the journey. Speaking of which, what about those builder incentives?
Ah, yes. The perks that can sweeten the deal. Things like upgraded appliances, landscaping packages, closing cost assistance, sometimes even those interest rate buydowns we talked about.
It's like getting bonus features thrown in.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's always worth asking what kind of incentives the builder is offering. You might be surprised at what they're willing to do to attract buyers.
You never know unless you ask, right?
Hmm,
It's clear that the housing market is constantly changing and evolving.
it is. But it's exciting to see how things like innovation and sustainability are shaping the future of home building.
It feels like we're at a real turning point. Now, as we wrap up this, I want to touch on something that goes beyond the dollars and
Huh.
cents. The emotional side of building a new home.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because it's about so much more than just the physical structure, isn't it?
It is. It's about creating a space that truly reflects who you are, a place where you feel a sense of belonging, a place where you can make memories and build a life.
It's about creating a legacy.
Exactly. And in the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore that very idea. Home as a legacy. The joy of creating a space that's uniquely yours, and the lasting impact our choices can have on future generations. You know, it's amazing to think about all the different aspects of homeownership we've covered today, from the nitty-gritty financials to the rise of sustainable building. It's clear that there's a lot to consider.
It is, isn't it? But I think there's something even more profound at play here, something that goes beyond just the practicalities.
I agree. We've talked a lot about the numbers, but at the end of the day, a home is so much more than just an investment, right?
Absolutely. It's about the feeling you get when you walk through the door, the memories you create, the sense of belonging and connection.
It's about putting down roots, building a life, creating a legacy.
Exactly. And that concept of legacy, it really resonates with me. It's about thinking beyond our own immediate needs and considering the impact our choices will have on future generations.
Yeah, it's about creating a home that not only serves us well today, but also leaves a positive mark on the world.
I love that. And I think both new construction and existing homes can play a role in that legacy. With new construction, you have the opportunity to incorporate all those cutting-edge technologies, those energy-efficient features, the sustainable materials, really set a new standard for responsible building.
And what about existing homes? What role do they play in all of this?
Well, they offer a different kind of opportunity. It's about preserving the character and history of our communities while making thoughtful upgrades that enhance sustainability and longevity. It's about honoring the past while looking towards the future.
It's like taking something that already has a story and adding a chapter that reflects our own values and our commitment to creating a better world.
I love that analogy. And it highlights the beauty of choice, Whether you decide to build new or go with an existing home, you have the power to make decisions that align with your vision of a sustainable future.
It's empowering, isn't it, to know that our individual actions can contribute to something larger than ourselves. But this whole idea of legacy goes beyond just sustainability.
Oh, absolutely. It's about the memories we create in our homes, the traditions we establish, the love and laughter that fill these spaces.
It's about family dinners, game nights, holiday gatherings. It's about creating a home that fosters connection, a place where people feel welcome and loved.
And those intangible aspects, those emotional connections, they're what truly make a house a home. And they become part of our personal legacy, something we pass down to future generations.
And whether you're building a new home from the ground up or giving an older home a new lease on life, that process of creation, of pouring your heart and soul into a space, it's incredibly rewarding, isn't it?
It is. It's a journey of self-discovery. You learn so much about what matters to you, what your priorities are, what kind of environment you want to create. And in the end, you're left with something that's uniquely yours, a reflection of your vision and your dreams.
It's funny, as we wrap up this deep dive, what really sticks with me is the idea that homeownership is so much more than just a financial investment. It's an investment in ourselves, in our families, and in the future.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's about finding a place where we can truly thrive, where we can connect with what matters most, and where we can make a positive impact on the world around us.
Well said. Thanks for joining me on this journey. I hope our deep dive has given our listeners some food for thought as they navigate their own paths to homeownership.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, no matter what path you choose, the most important thing is to create a space that brings you joy, comfort, and a sense of belonging. Because at the end of the day, that's what home is all about.